Nearly all workplaces have electrical equipment and an electrical supply, so you could easily use electricity as one of your hazards on your NEBOSH NG2 project or your IG2 project if you are studying the NEBOSH IGC. So let's take a look at our hazard categories. Here we are. It is electricity, just one hazard category there, and it's well worth just taking a quick look at the NEBOSH sample here. Now, there is some debate as to whether you should separate the portable appliances from the fixed supply of the whole site. It's interesting to see that NEBOSH on their sample have grouped these two things together. So they've grouped together all of the portable appliances, which could be like the power tools and the computers and the laptops and the chargers and the microwave and the kettle, with all of the fixed stuff, you know, the big machines and then the sockets in the wall and the circuit board and the lights and all of that. They've all grouped it into one. And me personally, I quite like that, because what you'll find is that the who might be harmed and how, if you split them up, the who might be harmed and how is broadly the same. It's like, how are you going to get harmed? Well, you're going to touch something that's live and you'll get electrocuted. Whether it's a portable appliance or whether it's a socket on the wall, it's the same thing. There might be some differences in relation to the control measures, mind, but broadly speaking, I think we can group them together like NEBOSH have done here. That being said, there's nothing wrong with you separating them if you want to. You could have one hazard for the portable appliances and another hazard for the fixed electrical supply. That would also be perfectly acceptable in my opinion. So let's just have an example of how we might phrase this. So the first thing that we are going to do is type in electricity as our hazard category. My preference is to group things together. So I could say use of electrical appliances, and I'm going to do Compassa. Look, we're filming today, so I'll say, right, use of electrical appliances such as portable studio lighting, battery chargers, and office equipment, laptops, plugged in to fixed electrical supply. Now, just to make it more specific, what I like to do personally is to add the voltage. So what is the voltage of this equipment? I think that's kind of useful, because if the power tools are battery operated, like 12 volts, 25 volts, it's a much lower risk, isn't it? If you're using 110 voltage, then that's a bit higher risk. And if it's 240, that's a lot higher risk. And if it's like high voltage, like 240 plus, like 480 and beyond, it's like much higher risk. So it could be up to 240 volts. So that's an example. Just remember, big malpractice warning, do not copy what I'm writing here. This is my hazard. It's not your hazard. You must not copy anything from anybody else. If you get caught cheating, you're going to be in big trouble with NEBOSH. There will be penalties, and it could mean that you will not be able to pass this qualification ever. If you're watching this and you're a NEBOSH student, did you know that you have a ton of resources on the Compassa website which you can use? Many of them are very cheap. You've got our YouTube section here, loads of free advice here, but if you want some study books, if you want exam technique documents, exam technique guides, instructions on how to do your NG2 or IG2 practical project, you can download those at some very reasonable prices from our website. And if you wanted hands-on tutor support with full access to all of our tutorials, guides, me and my colleagues at the tips of your fingers, consider signing up for our NEBOSH Rescue Package. You'll get access to our full course and tutor support at a heavily discounted rate. And, well, frankly, you'll struggle to find pass rates that are as consistently high anywhere else. Let's get back to the advice. In the who might be harmed and how, we are going to have users of the equipment, whoever that might be. So say who uses the equipment, who's at risk, and then describe the incident. So the incident is coming into contact with the electrical supply, coming into contact with something that's live, that's damaged. Or it could be, perhaps, in some industries, using the equipment in a wet environment, in the rain, in water. So describe the exposure to electricity. Then that should lead us to the injury. The injury, which is going to be electric shock, electrocution. Electrocution is basically death. If you're electrocuted, you're dead. If you're not dead, then you didn't get electrocuted. You just got an electric shock. You could talk about cardiac fibrillation, burns, all that nasty, gruesome stuff. In the controls, in these two columns here, what are we doing? What further controls are required? We need to include everything that is legally required. And there's a lot of stuff in the law which we can use. And a lot of that stuff uses the hierarchy of control. So in the law, we have baked into the law the hierarchy, of eliminate, of substitute, of engineering things out. Broadly speaking, you want to try to eliminate electrical sources if you can. You want to substitute things for a lower voltage, and you want to use engineering controls like residual current devices, fuses, circuit breakers, and so on. So you want to try and use a lot of those technical controls. And that could also include other things like double insulation. You might want to mention the insulation. I think things are insulated, things are physically protected. That's an engineered control. And you should mention all of those things really before you even get onto things like PAT testing and fixed wire testing and user checks and visual inspections and training and warning signs and all of that stuff. So let's take a look at the legislation. If you are a NEBOSH NGC student, so the national UK version of the course, you'll be referring to the Electricity at Work Regulations 1989. Old but gold. In here, we have a load of legal duties. And if you just look through these legal duties, you will actually see the control measures like earthing, like insulation, and the capability of it, and keeping it out of wet environments if it's not suitable for it, and trip switches and residual current devices and fuses, and working on dead circuits rather than live circuits, so avoiding live working, and so on and so on. It's all there, and so that kind of should inform you of the controls to put here. But obviously refer to your course materials, because your course materials tell you the controls you need to have in real life. These Electricity at Work regulations, super useful for when you do part 3 of the project. So part 3 down here, if you have an electrical action, then you need a specific legal argument. And so you could use Electricity at Work regs in there to justify why you should do this action. If you are an international student doing the NEBOSH IGC, well, there's plenty of stuff to choose from. We can mention the generic C155, but I don't recommend using C155. It's a little bit too generic for most people's liking. But down here, you could refer to the equipment has got to be safe. I prefer to go to this one first of all, the safety and health and use of machinery, the ILO Code of Practice. And if we just type in the search function, elec or something like that, let's do a little search until we find it, and there we have a section here, guarding and protection against other hazards, electricity supply. So that's going to be page 67. So let's just type in page 67 and that will take us straight there, and we'll see here just one duty only, and it talks about the design, construction, and how it's equipped. So that can be useful. You can talk about that. There might also be in the table of contents something to do with inspections. If I just type in inspect, here we go, we found it. So it's 2.4.3, inspection of machinery. And if it's something to do with inspections or PAT testing, perhaps you could use that there. If you have a particular industry, you might find a convention or a code of practice which applies to your industry. Here we've got the construction convention, C167. If I just type in electricity, there we are. We've got a whole load of duties, 3 duties there related to electricity. So that concludes that tutorial on electricity and how to put it in your IG2 or NG2 project. Hope it's useful. Ask me any questions. See you in the next one.